Previously on the Rubin Report.
You're confused?
Hey, boss, I'm a little less inclined to be fighting for communism today.
To register my opposition.
International.
Perfect place to hide cocaine.
My God, that's grade A cocaine. Joseph, you're gonna have to read this with me. All right, people, as they say in Venezuela, hola, this is the Rubin Report. I'm Dave Rubin. It's January 6th, 2026. 5 years ago today, something happened. Okay, what are you going to do? We got a big show for you today, people. I am going to have to do something that I don't love doing. Got to do a little of it. It's just part of the job. I saw it in the job description. I'm gonna have to smack around a couple of the influencers in this space, some of whom I, at other times in my life, was friends with. It is what it is. Obviously, mostly we are gonna focus on what's going on with Venezuela and connect that, as we did yesterday, to everything happening in New York, because we are, in some sense, eliminating the scourge of communism in Venezuela, or at least pushing back against it. We'll see where it all lands, while it's quite literally taking root in the number one city, the one-time number one city in America right now, and all. Then we'll get into all the media fracas around it and everything else. And we'll end by showing you that actually there are places that things are working. They just aren't in the once great state of New York. I should note that on yesterday's program, I said to you up top, I thought I had a colonoscopy today. So I was on a bone broth cleanse. I did manage to pull through the show despite not eating solid foods. And I'm just going for it again today. I'm still just doing bone broth. I sense an 8-9. Let's dive in. We're going to start with The View, because where do you go for hardcore international politics? It's The View. And here is Whoopi, a woman who, as I often point out, after the show, lops off one of her dreadlocks, smokes it, and heads on home to Westchester. Here she is saying that no one voted for Trump to take out Maduro.
So, while perhaps no one is going to miss a tyrant like Maduro, is this a legal thing? I mean, who voted for this? Who said, hey, yeah, go on in there and do this? Because originally, wasn't it, he was concerned about the drugs coming in and out, and yet he pardoned like a giant kingpin. And so what is this all about?
All right, she's a little muddled, which is why she can't get her words straight there. She's not even sure what she's talking about. Is this a legal thing? That's great analysis. Well, yes, first off, there is nothing illegal about what the president did. Now, who voted for this? That's an interesting one. Who voted for this? Because the election was, a little over a year ago, about 14 months ago. And it's not as if a whole bunch of us were like, I'm voting for Trump so we can not even invade, so that we can have a precise military action in about an hour and a half that will take out Maduro without anyone getting hurt. Nobody was really talking about that. However, one of the things we were talking about as it led into the election was drugs getting into our country and borders and things of that nature. And that's at least a portion of this. Obviously, there's the oil portion. Obviously, there's the general state of communism portion. And also, as I pointed out yesterday, there's a big connection between when things are going crazy in other parts of the world, people do want to leave. And what is the magnet that everybody wants to come to? Well, of course, that is the United States of America. But I did think it was interesting that Whoopi said, who voted for this? As if that should be the barometer of what a president does. I mean, first off, circumstances change all the time. So it's like things are going to pop up. But it's interesting because I don't think that Whoopi ever asked who voted for this when Joe Biden was in office. So, okay, we could do the hypocrisy thing all day long, but the point is, I don't remember during the election of Joe Biden him saying, I'm going to open up the border. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden was sold to America as the moderate Dem who wouldn't do that. But for some reason, Whoopi never asked that. Now, the reason I'm starting with a clip of The View is not just to own Whoopi. That's low-hanging fruit, obviously. But something interesting did happen because Ana Navarro, who's a fairly terrible analyst, not a great person, and shits all over Florida while she lives here enjoying all of our freedoms. She is Latina or Latinx, depending on, whatever. And she is actually happy about this. So they got into it just a little bit.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida. The Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years, when we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability. It brought me into tears. It brought me great joy. And, I live in South Florida, and I think you can still celebrate that this murderous, corrupt, sadistic son of a bitch is out of Venezuela. Because he has, I think there's 8 million Venezuelan exiles all over the world. People have fled from this man's tyrannical rule.
Well, hot damn, it's the first week of January of 2026, and Ana Navarro made some sense. That might be the only clip, but it's so interesting how intersectionality works, because in essence, she's Nicaraguan, what she was basically saying there is, in this case, shut up, Blackie. That's pretty much what she was saying there. Whoopi is basically like, I don't care about this part of the world, or it's not even that. Whoopi just, if Trump does something, she wants the reverse, right? But now Ana, who's been absurdly and obscenely inflicted with Trump derangement syndrome, finally Trump has done something that she views as positive because she's Nicaraguan, and obviously there's a connection there between Venezuelans and Cubans and Latin America, and she points out she lives here in South Florida, which, by the way, I'm here in Miami. There are tons of Venezuelans, as I pointed out. This is little Havana, basically. Tons of Spanish speakers here. Everyone that I'm talking to is freaking thrilled about this because they had to flee Venezuela and Cuba and some of those other countries because of communism. But it was just an interesting moment, I think, right there, because you get someone like Ana. Trump did something that you think is important, and I happen to think it's the right thing and agree with you. So there you get to basically dismiss Whoopi, and Whoopi, who voted for this, well, Donald Trump has made it clear we now have a Trump doctrine. It's an addendum to the Monroe Doctrine, and we are going to take care of America first, but that also means protecting our Western hemisphere. And if you let China and Iran and other bad guys get in on Venezuela and start exporting drugs, exporting terror, controlling the oil, well, then we have a problem on our doorstep. So it would not be America first to be like, yeah, let the bad guys just invade our neighbors and let's see what's what. I did get to interview Scott Jennings finally last night, as I pointed out to him at the top of the show. This is a guy who's been on the Rubin Report a gajillion times. However, it was his first actual appearance with me on the Rubin Report. And just real quick, we're going to be releasing a few of the clips tonight, and then the full interview will be up on Saturday. But I did ask him about Ana Navarro.
Oh, look, I've worked with Ana for a number of years. We have a lot of sharp disagreements on the air. I will note this week, I think for the first time since Donald Trump came to power, she said something nice about Donald Trump as it related to Venezuela. She praised him on Venezuela. And so that's a step in the baby steps, I guess. Baby steps. I mean, the truth is she supported Biden. Biden talked tough on Maduro, but never really did anything about it. And now Trump, who she obviously opposed, did something about it. So, this week, Ana Navarro and I are aligned. Trump did right on Venezuela, so we'll take it as a win. We'll call it a win.
Yeah, you'll really enjoy the interview. It's Scott laying just basic, as his book is about. It's just basic common sense for about 45 minutes. But I think what was interesting about that is, so, Ana Navarro, she's got the gig on The View, obviously, and then she's on this panel show with him, not all the time, he's on more, but on CNN. So he doesn't want to really talk crap about her, but exposing the BS is the point. That Joe Biden, we read it to you yesterday, had a tweet from, 5 years ago or so, that was something like, Maduro is a terrorist thug and Donald Trump's not going to do anything. Well, congratulations. You did nothing, Joe Biden, and you weren't even the president the entire time. And then it's evil, bad Donald Trump. So maybe, Ana Navarro, you want to eat some crow now and start let's say, reversing some of your feelings about the guy, right? Like, he did something good. Maybe it's because he actually isn't the evil tyrant that you turned him out, that you've made him out to be. Maybe he actually is the good guy who's fighting for Western values, and maybe Venezuela is going to be a bit freer, and those 8 million people who are all over the world as refugees from Venezuela, some of them will get to go home and reunite with their families and blah, 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 blah. I want to do one more thing of The View here, because Cheryl Hines, who I also had on the show not too long ago, about 2 months ago, star of Curb Your Enthusiasm and many other sitcoms over the years, she was on Howie Mandel's show, which I've been on, and they talked about how on The View, what happens on air is very different than what happens during commercial breaks.
Talking about The View and saying they shouldn't be asking you questions about your husband the whole time you're on The View, but it's reflective of what's going on.
But it seemed like an attack more than a question.
Well, yeah, there were some of them weren't questions; they were just statements. And so, I mean, listen, I appreciated talking to them.
Did you say when the cameras were off?
Yeah.
Well, how did you react?
Well, it was funny because right before the end of it, Whoopi said, "Will you please come back?" And I said, "Really?" I was being sincere. I was like, "Why do you want me to come back?" I'm like, "All you did was you guys were just like coming at me the whole time." But you know, when the cameras were off, they were all saying, "Really, thank you for coming." Like, I know it's hard, and it's hard if you have a different point.
All right, so the reason I want to show you that is because so much of what we are presented, especially on mainstream media, is just theater, right? They act one way. They're so mean and nasty and all of those things one way when the cameras are on. And then when the cameras are off, there's something else. And that doesn't really surprise everybody. And I've talked about how even in the online space, it can be very difficult to measure friendships versus criticism. And I, for one, always try to air stuff out privately before it gets publicly. We'll have more on that in just a second, so put a pin in that there. But what is super interesting about what's happening right now is you have large swaths of, I would say, people who don't necessarily even love Trump, like Ana Navarro, who are now saying Trump did good here. Then you have the Trump base, which is basically saying Trump did good. You have a sliver of the right, which is not happy about it. We'll get to that. And then you have just like the general state of crazies on the left, who the entire establishment Democrats are now afraid of, who are going crazy about this. Who's the one sane Democrat? It's the guy who had brain damage not too long ago, John Fetterman. And here he is wondering why his side can't acknowledge that this move on Maduro was positive.
I don't know why we can't just acknowledge that it's been a good thing what's happened. I mean, I've seen the speeches from whether it's Leader Schumer or kinds of past tweets from President Biden. You know, we all wanted this man gone, and now he is gone. I think we should really appreciate exactly what happened here. Now, remember, we all Democrats years ago wanted to eliminate him, and why have a bounty of $25 million if we didn't want him gone? Why would you do these things if you weren't willing to actually do something other than harsh language? For me, it's like, why as a Democrat, you know, we can't just acknowledge that it was successful?
So there's a couple things here. I mean, he's, as always, pointing out the ridiculousness, the general state of ridiculousness of the party, right? The party itself always purports to care for people. The people of Venezuela are going to be freer now. There is no doubt about that. All of the people that are running around screaming this is going to be like Iraq and Syria and Libya and all these things, like there is no, as Marco Rubio pointed out, we showed you the clip yesterday, there's just simply no comparison. Right? It's a completely different part of the world. It's a completely different set of cultures, a completely different religious structure around all of it. Like, these are completely separate things. And we did an unbelievably precision operation within 90 minutes to remove the guy, bring him here to the United States. We will see what happens now with elections and who's going to lead the country. And there's an exiled leader that maybe she'll get. Like, we're going to see about some of that stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it is all going to be absolute, like, roses and candy tomorrow. But the people of Venezuela, by and large, are happy right now. The leadership who is around Maduro is quaking in their boots. They're not too thrilled. The expats are happy, again, because they fled Maduro. But he's more broadly pointing out that what the Democrats have been quite good at, and it's not even Democrats, what politicians almost exclusively before Trump have been very good at is saying things, right? We can say things. Maduro's a murderous thug. We don't like him, and we don't like the drugs he's exporting, and we don't like all that stuff in communism. But they don't do anything about it. They tweet about it. Donald Trump has, the thing that Donald Trump has done more than anything else is shift what politics actually is. He says something and then he does something about it. And not only that, we now went in and got rid of Maduro. And then what did Trump say on the plane? We showed you the clip yesterday. He was like, well, you know, Cuba, you may want to watch out. It sends a signal to the rest of the world to maybe you want to be a little bit better. But I want to show you how he also then exposes all the hypocrites, which is exactly what John Fetterman is talking about. This is Representative Joaquin Castro from San Antonio, Texas. And here he is. I think the first clip is him on Maduro in Venezuela, or it's Maduro, Venezuela, and the leadership in 2017 versus yesterday.
The people of Venezuela are in dire need of humanitarian assistance to endure critical food and medicine shortages. The desperation, oppression, and violence in Venezuela really are reaching a breaking point.
I think his foreign policy is make Trump rich. I don't think he's doing what's in the best interest of the United States of America or even Venezuela. I think he's doing what's in the best interest of himself and a small circle of cronies that he's going to help take over industries in Venezuela and make billions of dollars off of.
The level of absurdity with these people is incredible. So you're telling me in 2017, the desperation, the violence, these people are starving, they're hungry, blah, 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 blah. That was in 2017. Now Trump eliminates, in a 90-minute operation where not one American twisted an ankle, eliminates the leader. There is going to, whoever steps in after, and whether we're going to facilitate some of it or Marco Rubio is going to be the viceroy of Venezuela or whatever, it's like, it's obviously going to be more friendly. These are people who yearn for freedom, and they don't, again, this has nothing to do with the Middle East. They don't have the ancient religious hatreds that are driving so much of this craziness over there, right? So that you suddenly, now Trump comes, yes, Donald Trump sat around over the last couple of weeks with his billionaire buddies and was like, yeah, let's do this operation so we all get richer. It's just, at this point, after a decade plus of Donald Trump the politician, it is just profoundly, profoundly ridiculous. And it's, more importantly, it's completely dismissive to the people of Venezuela and the Americans, sort of like Ana Navarro, who are sympathetic to the plight of those people. So now let's jump back to Scott Jennings, not on this show, this is over on CNN, talking about the 42% of people that oppose Maduro's capture, only because a certain man did it.
The idea that 42% disapprove is a higher number than I would think. It says to me that the American people are thinking not just about this operation, but maybe more about also, well, what comes next?
Well, also it's Trump. I mean, 42% of the American people would oppose it if he cured cancer personally in the Oval Office tonight. I mean, there is a reflexive opposition to Trump. It is the entire platform of the Democratic Party. And to the extent that that's how their leadership tells them to act, that's how the Democratic grassroots are going to see it. You see Democrats today who long came on this network and others and called for Maduro's ouster, demanded it. Now saying they oppose the fact that Donald Trump just arrested Maduro. This reflexive opposition to everything Trump does is corrosive of the Democratic Party, and you shouldn't look at these things through that lens.
Yeah, you shouldn't look at everything through that lens. It's a sort of, in some sense, it's a silly question, Jake. Look, you can question what Donald Trump did. You can question what the future might hold for Venezuela, and could we get into some version of a quagmire? Again, it's going to be very, very different. We're not just loading the country with troops and installing people. Like, it's just going to be a very, very different thing. And again, it's in our hemisphere, not a world away. And we know that Iran and China have been encroaching and trying to get control of their oil. But all of that aside, what Scott's saying basically is 42%. All right, well, so 42% disagree with what Donald Trump did here. Okay, we know America is basically divided 50-50. 42% isn't that much. And it's also true. He says it in a joking manner. If they came out today, while we are on air right now, and Donald Trump was like, we have cured cancer, half the people would think it was horrible because they would say it's not a real cure and he did it in some sort of nefarious way, or it's just for him and his billionaire crony friends to profit, et cetera, et cetera. So giving me polling on this isn't that important. It is what is actually right and to the broader point, what is American policy in our part of the world? We are the last remaining superpower. We are the only country in the world that can really still do big things, and thank God for that. Unless we want to completely abdicate the throne, right? We could just say, we're out. And I get that this is what a certain portion of the left absolutely wants because they don't fundamentally like America. And this is what this sliver of, I would say, nutbags on the right, the Tucker Carlson types want. They want this hyper libertarian thing, which is just fantasy, that we'll have nothing to do with the world and then the world will just be perfect. I think it's just kind of silly. What you can have is peace through strength. You blow up a boat, the next boat guy is like, I'm not going to get on that boat. Anyway, here is Stephen Miller explaining to Jake Tapper what Trump's foreign policy actually is.
The reason why I was giving you that speech, which I know you didn't want to hear, is because you're approaching this from the wrong frame. This neoliberal frame that the United States' job is to go around the world and demanding immediate elections be held everywhere, immediately, all the time, right away. To create these vacuums.
That's not what I think, but you invaded the country. We went into the country and we seized the leader of Venezuela.
Damn straight we did.
And I'm saying,
we're not going to let,
so is the U.S. going to have new elections?
Jake, is that we're not going to let Tim Pot communist dictators send rapists into our country, send drugs into our country, send weapons into our country.
Okay.
And we're not going to let a country fall into the hands of our adversaries.
I'm going to try to give the devil his due. Jake, it's not a terrible question. Are we going to back, in essence, free and fair elections in Venezuela at some point? That is legit, actually. I don't know that it's necessarily what we need to be talking about right this second, but what is the future for Venezuela, for the Venezuelan people to live in a free place? Is that part of the equation here? That is somewhat fair. But what Miller's, I would say, righteous indignation is about is that what he's trying to illustrate is the old rules don't apply anymore. It's exactly what Fetterman was saying. Why is it that we had a $25 million bounty on this guy's head and we did nothing? Why is it that Joaquin Castro 7-8 years ago was talking about how evil Venezuela's regime was and now is against what Donald Trump just did? That Trump is now a man of action. America is stepping into the world stage. You may not love all of that, and it may not all work out perfectly, but we are doing something a little bit different. And it doesn't mean we're going to steal all of Venezuela's oil, but if China and Iran have less access to it and have less access to this part of the world, that's just empirically good for American values. We will get to, I mentioned at the top, going to have to do something that's a little messy and talk about some of the influencers on the right who I once was friends with and their reaction to some of this stuff. We'll do that in just a second, but first, Tax Network USA. Do you owe back taxes or haven't even filed in years? Now's the time to resolve your tax issues. With the national debate around abolishing the income tax system, the IRS is pushing back by becoming more aggressive than ever. They're sending more collection notices, filing more tax liens, and collecting billions more than in recent years. If you owe or you haven't filed, it's not a matter of if the IRS will act, it's when. Right now, Tax Network USA is offering a completely free IRS research and discovery call to show you exactly where you stand. Their programs and strategies can save you thousands or even eliminate your debt entirely if you qualify. Don't make the mistake of trying to handle the IRS on your own. Representing yourself or calling them directly can waive your rights and cost you significantly more. The IRS is not on your side, but Tax Network USA is. Get the protection you need and start resolving your tax matters once and for all. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave for your free discovery call. Don't let the IRS be the first to act. All right, so you guys know it is easy for me to sit here and beat up the mainstream media, and they have lied about so much, whether it is COVID or Russia, or Biden laptop or very fine people, and it goes on and on and on. It's easy. It's extraordinarily easy for me to do that, and I would say it's easy to the point that it's actually boring. One of the interesting things that's happened over the last couple of years is as the mainstream media has descended, there has been an ascendant online media, of which I'm part of. I guess I'm probably a pioneer in it, and I was one of the first independent guys in home studio before COVID and all of those things. I'm very proud of that, actually. And one of the things that's been great about the online media is that because the mainstream media was so terrible, online media started doing things that were real and true and got you information without the middleman and all of those things. And that, for a couple of years, I think was really great. I would say over the last year or so, that ecosystem has really been poisoned. And maybe there was no way around it, in that anyone can get a nice desk and put on a nice jacket and kind of look like they know what they're doing. And you can lie to people. And if you can trick the algorithms and all of those things, you can do an awful lot of damage. And I would say right now, the online ecosystem is very poisoned. We will see where that all shakes out. And I have a feeling a lot of people who have been very influential over the last couple of years are going to be much less influential by the end of this year. But okay, put that aside. Yesterday, we showed you this clip, which we've shown you before. It's from about a month and a half ago when Megyn Kelly was on tour, and she brought Ben Shapiro on, and she was sort of doing this little dance with Tucker Carlson where she was constantly defending him, but pretending not to defend him. And they brought up Maduro and Venezuela. And this is, remember, when you watch this clip, I know you saw it yesterday, but when you watch this clip, listen to the applause that Ben is getting at Megyn's own show.
Two, saying last week that the Venezuelan regime of Nicolás Maduro is actually not that bad because they're being attacked by, in his words, globo homo.
Tucker's made the point, I'm not going to here to be Tucker's defender, but he's made the point that Maduro is culturally conservative.
Who gives a shit? The guy's a communist dictator. Everyone in his country is eating dog. He's shipping fentanyl to the United States to kill Americans. Why don't we give a shit whether he's anti-LGBTQ rights? This is the number one thing about Nicolás Maduro. You know how far down the list you have to get before you can get to anything remotely recommendable about Nicolás Maduro?
Was that Ben on speed, or did we speed that up, or that was just popped up Ben Shapiro in front of a live crowd? He sounded even more Mickey Mouse-ish, but he makes a good point. And yes, Megyn, you are acting as Tucker's lawyer. Like, look, Megyn, why do you care that Tucker is socially conservative? I don't even think you're really socially conservative, but put that aside for a moment. Ben is right. Let's say you are you just hate the gays, right? You really just hate the gays. Well, that should be pretty damn low on your list of what you think about Maduro, right? You think the average person, I mean, Tucker literally put out a video in the last 2 days where he says this is because America wants to install administration that'll have gay marriage in Venezuela. It's just profoundly insane, just profoundly insane. But let's jump over now to, this has been, I would say, consistent with Megyn's dissent over the last couple of months. Here is her show, I think this is from yesterday, talking about how Fox is now cheering on this Trump move, and that is akin to watching Russian propaganda.
When I was at Fox News, which was a long time, 14 years, I would have known exactly what to do in the wake of Trump's attack in Venezuela, his retrieval, shall we say, to put it in mild terms, of Nicolás Maduro. I would have known that I was supposed to cheerlead it. And I turned on Fox News yesterday, and I'm sorry, but it was like watching Russian propaganda. There was nothing skeptical. I'm going to stay on the yellow light for this. I'm not in the green light territory. I'm not in the red light territory either, but I am staying in the yellow light territory for now. I see all of the strategic advantages of what he's done. Trust me, I do. I see that other countries like Russia and China and Cuba were all over Venezuela and its oil, posing a potential threat to the United States. I get that. That's actually the most persuasive argument, and obviously the real one, and none of this bullshit about law enforcement. But I have seen what happens when you cheerlead unabashedly U.S. intervention in foreign countries, thinking it's for our good and for the international good, only to wind up with what we've called quagmire.
All right, my friend Megyn, let me point out a couple things here. First off, it's interesting you say you would have known what to do because you were at Fox for all those years. So in essence, what you're saying is they were paying you to lie? That's interesting. How much money did you get all those years while you were just doing what the company told you to do? Some people might say that makes you a sellout. I don't know, just an interesting point. That's one thing. The second thing is that it's absolutely fine to have an isolationist worldview. I've pointed that out many times. It's not my particular, I'm always very sympathetic. I mean, I say this all the time on a million issues. I am very sympathetic and often really deeply understand the libertarian position on things, right? I think it's mostly, unfortunately, it's a theoretical worldview and not a real worldview. You can say, okay, I want peace. I want everyone to be nice. I don't believe in war and all of these things. And it's like, well, war can still come to you. There are bad guys out there, unless, and I don't think Megyn is, unless you're so brainwashed into believing in utopia that you don't even understand the nature of human beings, that there are people who are bad and who are going to do things. And that's the very nature of having a nation state and everything else. So what she's really doing there is she lays out all of the obvious reasons that it's good that we did this, right? Like it's good because Iran and China are encroaching and the oil situation and everything else. She knows that it's good. And what she's doing there, unfortunately, and I really, really mean this, is that she has tied herself to Tucker and to Candace Owens to get their clicks. That is what she has done. She wants their clicks desperately, which is why she has repeatedly said she's very happy about what Candace Owens, she wanted Candace Owens to ask all the questions about Charlie Kirk's death. And it's like Candace has gone completely off the freaking rails. And she wants that audience. And that's why you don't have an opinion on this? I'm just going to play the yellow light on this? You know what's right and wrong. But okay, we'll leave that there. Max Abrams, who's a professor at Northeastern, he wrote this about Megyn's show yesterday. I'll remind you, Megyn is a turning point speaker. I came across her interview with Aaron Mate from a Glenn Greenwald retweet, hardly a friend of Trump. So this is who she had, this guy Aaron Mate, who's a far lefty. I mean, and she loves Glenn Greenwald, who's a far left, complete anti-American nutbag who doesn't even live in America. But that's who she chose to have on her show to analyze what's going on in Venezuela yesterday. I mention all this not because I want to even play in this stupid influencer game. I really don't, and I think that that's pretty freaking obvious. But I think this is the year that a certain set of influencers are just going to crash out. Like, you guys are smart. You know, one of the things that I never do on this show is treat you stupid. I don't. I treat you smart. Sometimes I don't even finish my sentences because I know you know what I'm thinking already. I know you know what the conclusion is. And then there's another set of influencers, and I unfortunately now absolutely can put Megyn in that bucket, who think that their audiences are stupid and they're just doing it for clicks, and that's really kind of disappointing. But it is interesting to watch the ecosystem sift out. Here's Patrick Bet-David analyzing a little bit about what's going on with Tucker and Ben, and I think you'll see the connection to all of this.
Charlie's the guy you follow, and you're like, dude, Charlie's a freaking, not Charlie, what do you call it? Tucker is, I just kind of like him. You're attracted to Tucker, but you're married to Ben. Who's going to be the face of the conservative movement?
So it's interesting. Who's going to be the face of the conservative movement? Well, first off, I don't even think conservative is actually the word we want to talk about. It's like, who's going to be the face of a future MAGA, right? The MAGA that is about all the great things about America that Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump will not always be here. So is it going to be JD? Is it going to be Marco? Is it going to be Trump Jr.? Is it going to be somebody else? Like, who knows? But the split right now that we are seeing on the right, which, if you would have asked me a month and a half ago, it really seemed like this out of control Tucker, Groyper, Megyn thing was really picking up steam. I think it has really lost a lot of steam. They were really wrong about Iran. They're really going to be wrong about this. They've been really wrong attaching themselves to Candace. They've tried to destroy Turning Point from the inside. And I think people are basically over the wedge that has been put in us. As I said yesterday, America, we are turning 250 in about 7 months from now, almost to the day, 6 months, almost to the day. And it's like, we right now have this opportunity to fix the whole thing, but it is a small window to do it when we can grasp that kind of patriotism and celebration and have the right president and have the competent people around him and all of those things. That's the energy we need. We don't need the energy to burn everything down.
People whom I used to call friends, who have been all over the internet trying to shame me and say that no one should ever listen to this program again because I haven't spoken out on the Erika-Candace conflict. I don't have any pearls of wisdom other than go yourselves. Go yourselves. You have no clue what's going on. You don't know what I do behind the scenes. And your world is so myopically online, you fail to understand there are real humans involved here.
So you can watch that if you want, someone who will tell their audience to go fuck themselves. Megyn, I know what you do behind the scenes, and it ain't what you do on camera, but she has hitched her wagon to Candace. And that is a crazy, crazy position. She claimed that she had something to do with Erika and Candace getting together, which subsequently people, I knew it was not going to end well, right? You're just giving Candace more fodder for the craziness. So they did have their meeting, though, and now here's Candace a couple days ago on the Tim Dillon show. He's just a comic, but on his show, and here she is laughing while he's mocking Erika Kirk.
I'm not saying she killed her husband or knew about it or whatever. I'm saying the guy got shot 3 months ago, and she walks out to a pyrotechnic display. And then she goes, we're going to elect J.D. Vance. It's weird that that's where her head is at.
All right. First off, you don't know where her head is at. I mean, Candace is smiling through all of that. The pyrotechnic thing that they're talking about was the memorial for Charlie a couple days after his assassination. I was there. President Trump was there. Elon Musk was there. The entire cabinet was there. It was. I've never been in a room. I mean, I think it was 80,000 or 100,000 people. I've never been in any building that had anything near the emotional and spiritual impact of that moment right there. And did they have pyrotechnics that they walked out to? They did. It was a bit of a show. You know, you have the president there and you have big screens and you're playing music and all of those things. Yeah, so there were pyrotechnics. But they could be like laughing about that and implying that Erika had anything to do with it or anything else. But then I haven't really gone too deep on these Candace clips. And then I promise we're going to move on from this and we're going to get to the better side of it. But Candace yesterday, listen to this doozy about Erika.
Amazing that her husband, Michael McCoy, Elizabeth McCoy, was the person who approved this tent. So there's no way that they can come out and pretend like Erika didn't know this was happening because she's very close with Elizabeth McCoy. Okay, she's very close with her. So for everybody on the outside looking into this, AmFest is when we realized that something very disturbing is happening in America. I feel like AmFest or what it did for me was contributed to my realization that the future, the dark future that everyone's always predicting, like the AI future, it's here. We're actually here. I think that we are fighting machines.
She then goes on to say that she thinks Erika and some of the others are sentinels. They're not humans. Now, I actually sat next to, the only time I met Erika Kirk ever was at Candace's wedding, and I sat next to Charlie and Erika, and I saw her eat. And everyone knows that humanoid sentinel robots cannot eat organic food. So I demand that Candace Owens release the seating chart from the wedding and the menu from the wedding. That would go a long way to answering some of the questions that many of us are having about all this. Okay, I want to put a pin in that because it's not, I know it's like annoying and retarded and everything else. And one of the things that I've mentioned over the last little bit is that it's been a very strange couple months. You know, Charlie was assassinated on September 10th of last year. About a month before that, Jordan Peterson became quite ill and he's fully MIA right now. And hopefully we'll get some good news out of that soon, but he's not available in a public sense at all. Dennis Prager, as you know, right after the election last year, took quite a spill. And he's in essence quadriplegic right now. Thankfully, he has his mind and a bit of an ability to speak, and he's been putting out some more videos, which is great. Scott Adams, who is another absolute all-star of sanity, who I've had on the show many times, he is terminally ill with cancer and thinks he probably only has a few more weeks to live. It's Victor Davis Hanson, who I haven't had on this show, but we've played clips of many times, who's been an unbelievable voice of reason for the last couple of years. He just had a tumor removed and he's MIA. So there's just we've just been in this moment where we're losing some good people. And then another one that we lost, but for a different set of reasons, and we're about to get him back, thank God, is Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, who I think had the single biggest political podcast in the world before he took this job with the Trump administration. He has finally stepped away and he is coming back. And I want to read you two tweets of his regarding sort of why, the timeline and kind of why he's coming back. And thankfully we will have him back because we need more soldiers. It can't just be me, people. Listen to this. Good to see you all. I missed you. Thanks for everything while we worked on cleaning up. Working in the administration was the experience of a lifetime. I'll have some announcements coming up, but I'm taking a couple days to spend with family. A couple of things. Thank you for your interest in the show and its return date. We will have something for you soon. The Trump team is not kidding around, and it's an otherworldly experience from the other side. He's determined and focused, and having been around quite a few presidents, this one broke the mold. If we blocked you, it's because we care so little about your bullshit that we deem it not worthy of even seeing. If you're bitching and whining about what that means, you can't exist without seeing and commenting on ours. You'll need to get over that. We do it because there's nothing black pillars and anti-Trumpers want more than to create division and drama. We're about results, and we'll talk about some of it soon. Love you all, and thanks again, flaming Elmo emoji. And let me just read you one more before I comment. Let me add this. So he retweeted himself and he wrote this. Let me add this. From the jump, there's no confusion. I started in this movement as a candidate during the Tea Party movement and began my political commentary shortly thereafter. I helped build this movement, and I sure as hell am not going to let it get hijacked by a group of black pillars, life losers, grifters, and bums. We are a movement guided by truth. The essence of conservative ideology is the preservation of eternal truths. We are not the latest thing group. We are not political cannibals. I've watched quietly from the inside while doing the job I was hired to do, but I'm back now and it's time to restore that balance to the force that was one for Juillet. As we get ready to make some announcements about the future of the show, I also want to warn the haters and the zeros. We've been at this a long time. We live for this stuff. This isn't our first, second, or 10th rodeo. We've seen a lot of dipshits come and go. We revel in making you angry enough to show your asses. It's glorious. We've got midterms coming up, and there's no time for bullshit. This administration is cooking, and real change simmers. If you're spending your entire day bitching and whining with the 3/4 of the term still to go, then please find the exits. There's no time for it. It's not infighting when you exercise a cancer killing the host. It's outfighting because you're not part of any movement I'm familiar with. Looking forward to things ahead. Can't wait to tell you about it, Dan. That is the energy and truth and reality that we need. These black pillars, these people purportedly on the right who scream about Trump's creating World War III and everything is horrible and everything's crashing, and it's enough. If we are going to survive the communist takeover and Islamist takeover of this country, that by November could really start if Trump loses the House and then suddenly he's a lame duck and everything else, then we got to get on board right now and we have to push the grifters and the black pillars and everything else aside. So I am thrilled that Dan will be back. And I guess this just came out from Dan. He's writing, you're damn right I did. Oh, I see. So I'm just seeing this. You're damn right I did. And it's a Mediaite headline. Dan Bongino declares war on black pillars and grifters trying to hijack MAGA. So it is obvious who he is talking about right there. He's talking about the Tuckers and the Candaces and perhaps some other people who I've mentioned on the show, et cetera, et cetera. And we will see. The fight has just begun. Look, it is great that we have an alt media. We needed it. Mainstream media was pretty shitty. But alt media in some sense has become as toxic and in weird ways even more toxic than mainstream media. And maybe this is now the year, if we're going to really fix things and America's 250 and Trump's going to continue and all those things, that we're going to have to clean up our own pond, right? Our pond has been poisoned and we got to clean it up. All right, let's put that aside for a moment and we'll get back to the easy stuff, which is making fun of the lefties. We're going to go to Minnesota, but first, Venice AI. Sam Altman just announced that ChatGPT can now reference all your past conversations, every thought, question, idea you've ever shared. And with a former NSA director now on their board, Edward Snowden called it a willful, calculated betrayal of the rights of every person on Earth. We've seen this before. Alexa listens. Meta tracks everything you do. Why assume AI will be any different? And now OpenAI might even start asking for government IDs to use ChatGPT. That's where Venice.ai comes in. It gives you the power of AI without giving up your privacy. It's open source, private, and runs right in your browser. No spying, no censorship, no data collection. Your chats stay encrypted and stored only on your device. Go to venice.ai/Dave and use code Dave for 20% off a pro plan. That's venice.ai/Dave, code Dave. Real AI, real privacy. All right, so obviously Venezuela is the big story, but back here domestically, there's two kind of stories blowing up. One is all the chaos of New York City, and we'll get to that in just a second. The other one is the corruption in Minnesota, and the corruption is so bad and so over the top that it stopped a man who was on the cusp of becoming vice president of the United States. It has now stopped his re-election campaign in its tracks. That's right, Tim Walz will not run for re-election because he has so obviously been exposed in this Somali fraud case that we're going to find out a lot more of. Here's a little compilation, but here's Walz saying that it's the mean YouTubers who have done this to him, and Trump's mean, and that means he can't run, or something like that.
We've got conspiracy theorist right-wing YouTubers breaking into our daycares, demanding access to our children. We've got the President of the United States demonizing our Somali neighbors. I don't want to mince words here. Donald Trump and his allies in Washington and in St. Paul and online want to make our state a colder, meaner place. They want to poison our people against each other by attacking our neighbors. But as I reflect on this moment with my family and my team over the holidays, I came to the conclusion that I can't give a political campaign my all. Every minute that I spend defending my own political interest would be a minute I can't spend defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who want to prey on our differences.
Everything that you can possibly say is wrong with politics and politicians is summed up in that man. Now, first off, he's blaming the Somali fraud scam on Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley is just a YouTuber who started to go to some places that claim they are child daycare centers getting millions of dollars from the government. And it turns out there's no kids in some of these places. There's barely any people there. Like, that's all he did. That's all he did. But he's a far conspiracy theorist, right-wing YouTuber. I mean, it's just profoundly absurd. But the more absurd part of it is that Tim Walz, if you believed anything you said about how horrible Donald Trump is and how horrible these YouTubers are and how wonderful the Somalis of Minnesota are, and ironically, when he's talking about our kids, well, there were no kids in some of these daycare centers. But if any of those things you said is true, wouldn't that give you more reason to fight? So what you're saying is, boy, Donald Trump's mean, this conspiracy YouTuber was going after our kids and blah, blah. That's why I can't do the job anymore. It makes no sense unless you're incriminated in this, or you're just an utter coward, right? And that's, I suppose that's 10% possible. You're just a freaking coward, and yet, no, we know you had something to do with it, so it's just not possible. But I guess it could be a little of both. You're a liar and a coward. I think that's where it's at. But your policies have failed. The immigration situation in Minnesota is a disaster, and now we're exposing the money laundering, and you're going to be in a lot of shit whether you're governor or not. Here's Karoline Leavitt on that.
This is a man who can no longer even win the support of the voters within his home state because his policies have failed them. And now the great people of Minnesota, a state that was once known as the land of 10,000 lakes, has been turned into the land of 10,000 Somali schemes because of their governor. And don't forget, this is a guy who was at the top of the Democrat Party's ticket, the number 2. He was Kamala Harris's running mate just about a year ago until President Trump crushed them last November. And this is a all hands on deck across the entire government effort. We are surging resources. You saw today the Department of Homeland Security announced we have nearly 2,000 agents from the Homeland Security Investigations Team. The FBI is on the ground, and we're freezing money. HHS cut off funding for child care centers and for daycares.
So which is it, Tim? Is it just that you sat with your family over the Christmas break and you were like, my political life is less important than the state of this state? Or is it that you realize, as Karoline lays out there, you're involved in a lot of this nonsense? The Attorney General, Keith Ellison of Minnesota, is caught on audio basically saying he's going to cover up for the fraud. There's no doubt that it has something to do with Ilhan Omar. We've played before the Christmas break the statements from people who are involved in this, who say that they brought attention to your office about some of the fraud and you stonewalled them or ignored them. So you're in trouble. And truly, it couldn't happen to a worse person. He's just a terrible person. Do you remember back in March when Elon Musk, at the height of Doge, was finding government fraud all over the place? So then what did the foot soldiers, the brown shirts of the Democrat Party, do? They started firebombing Tesla charging stations and keying random people's Teslas. And I think there was the guy who took a dump on somebody's Tesla and the woman who peed on it and all the rest of it. And you guys were so thrilled that it looked like Elon Musk, who 2 years ago was a hero. He was a liberal environmentalist tech hero to all of you. Now he was with Big Bad Trump. You were celebrating when Tesla's stock was dropping last March.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you.
Like what a scumbag. Like putting aside, okay, so it will hurt Elon Musk because the stock goes down. It hurts millions of other people. It also is an unbelievably incredible piece of technology, right? Like I have a Tesla. When you are driving that Tesla, it is like, and then you go into a combustible engine car, it's night and day. It's an incredible piece of technology. Now, ironically, that was back in March. Well, listen to this from yesterday. Sorry, Tim. Breaking. Elon Musk's Tesla has surged 100% Since Tim Walz publicly celebrated the stock's decline, while Musk keeps winning, Walz can't seem to catch a break. I mean, really think about that. From that, he was celebrating a temporary blip because you guys were literally firebombing Tesla charger stations and you created so much chaos around Tesla, right? That's what you guys did. And you were celebrating that just some average person who has some of his money in Tesla was going to lose money. And well, we flash forward, what is it, about 10 months later, and it's up 100%. So as they say, suck it, Tim Walz. Rumble Premium, and then we will jump to New York City. Guys, if you want the best experience on Rumble, you need a Rumble Premium. It's ad-free, distraction-free, and built entirely around creators who actually stand for something. You'll get exclusive access to a whole lineup of voices that aren't afraid to think differently. Rumble Premium is how you support a platform that's genuinely built on free speech, not just talking about it. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin. That's rumble.com/premium/Rubin for 10% off annually for Rumble Premium. Join the movement today. Actually, just during the break there, Joseph just reminded me that the other ironic, but it's all obvious too, part of the absurdity of him celebrating that Tesla stock went down is that Minnesota's state, the state pension, right? The state pension fund is heavily invested in Tesla. So, God, you idiots all get what you vote for. Anyway, speaking of idiots who get what they vote for, Zohran Mamdani, the communist, socialist, jihadist, Islamist who's in charge of New York City right now, is very excited because his clown courts are about to begin.
And I am also proud to announce that I will be signing an executive order directing HPD to work alongside the Department of Buildings, the newly invigorated Mayor's Office to Protect Tenants, the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, and our newly created Office of Mass Engagement to hold rental ripoff hearings across all...
More government, more agencies, more departments, more offices, more floors that are made of linoleum with really bad lighting and all depressed people that are working there who aren't really committed to anything because they don't own any of it because it's all run by the government, and we can have these crazy hearings. Where do we have, remember these? Yeah, that's the Dark Knight Rises, and that's the Scarecrow there. And he had those kind of clown court hearings, and you got to choose. You were guilty either way, but you could choose to be, I think it was killed right there, or you could walk off in the ice and be killed a few minutes later. And that's basically what is coming to New York City. But not only that, okay, so they're gonna have more offices, rental rip-off hearings. By the way, that's not to say that there aren't bad landlords. Of course there are bad landlords. And by the way, in many cases, there are bad landlords because you guys artificially do things with rent regulations and all of those things so that they can't make enough money, or they choose not to do repairs to things because they're not making as much money, right? If an apartment could potentially go for, let's say, $3,000 fair market value, but you guys say, oh, this person's been living there for a while, it can only go for $1,000, right? Well, then the guy that owns the building might be like, well, I'm gonna put less into the building. And trust me, I lived in New York City for many years in shitty ass buildings that cracks were falling all over the place, and there were leaks, and there were times in the winter that our heater didn't work for months. I'm not defending the landlords of New York City writ large, right? But it's like, okay, we're just gonna have more governmental control over everything, as if that's not gonna work, as if that's gonna work. It's completely absurd. And speaking of absurd, he also is gonna get World Cup tickets for everybody, apparently.
What we are seeing, I had a New Yorker the other day come up to me and ask me if there was any way I could help him get World Cup tickets, because he was saying that the cost that he saw for a game was $600, right? This is increasingly out of reach. We have made what used to be a working class game into a luxury experience. And there are too many for whom it doesn't matter where the World Cup is being played in the world, they know where they're going to watch it. It's TV. And we want to ensure that there are more experiences available to each and every New Yorker.
What does that have to do with the government? The World Cup, well, first off, there are 0 games in New York City. We're just getting some info here. The FIFA World Cup games will be played at MetLife Stadium, which is in East Rutherford, New Jersey. That's where the Nets used to play, if I'm not mistaken. But putting that aside for a moment, that there's a press conference where he's even remotely mentioning the price of World Cup games is absurd. And look, what we all like to go to things that are cheaper. Jerry Seinfeld's coming to the Hard Rock Hollywood in 2 weeks, and I looked at the price of tickets yesterday. I can't go anyway because it turns out we have something that weekend. But, you know, it was like $600 a seat. That seems like a little excessive to see a stand-up, and I have nothing but respect for Jerry, right? I love him. I think he's great. Would I like that to be cheaper? Sure. But there's something called the market, and the market allows for people to buy things for what they are worth. So Jerry Seinfeld is going to sell stand-up tickets for more than, say, Banya. For any of those that got the reference there, right? Like that's what the market does. So you're going to figure out ways using the government so that more people can go to World Cup games. Again, I would love to go to, I don't care about soccer, but like it would be nice if those things were cheaper, but watch them on TV. Watch them on TV. It has nothing to do with nothing. But it's not. Okay, you might say, all right, that's just flipping, who cares? Well, listen to this one. This is a Zohran, what do we call him? Moron Zamboni cabinet member. Her name is Cea Weaver, and saying they plan to treat property as a collective good. This is wild communist manifesto stuff. Watch this.
I think the reality is that for centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
Who the fuck do these people think they are? Phoenix, you were in a watch, right? You have a pretty nice watch over there, right? Yeah, you have a pretty nice watch. Did you know that watch is mine? I want that watch. We're going to go on a little timeshare operation. I don't wear a watch. I'm not a big jewelry guy, but I want your watch, and I want that watch. And Joseph, well, look at those fancy shoes you got on over there. I want those shoes. Give me that shoe. Thank you. I've got Joseph. Hit me in the head with the shoe. I've got the shoe now. Connor, what do you got over there? You got nothing. You got just nothing. The point. Look, these people, that is radical psychotic lunacy. That woman should be in a mental institution, and instead she's working for the mayor of New York City. But none of this should surprise anybody, right? Like, we've all screamed out this. You idiots voted him in. I feel bad for the people who didn't vote for him that are still there. Plus the jihad's coming. Like, you guys are screwed beyond imagination. But everything she said there, property should be collective, not individual. These are my glasses. They're mine. They're not yours. You want to borrow them if you're having a problem? Sure. Yeah, you can borrow them, but you can't have them. They're not yours. If property's not collective, it's yours. Like it's just as simple as that. There's a reason you have a door at your house. It's your house. Shared equity, and it's going to be mostly white people, of course, but some POCs. Some of those black people who got shit, suck it up. You're whitey now. It's just completely absurd. I thought this quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn was fantastic and sort of debunks that entire nonsense. Human beings are born with different capabilities. If they are free, they are not equal. And if they are equal, they are not free. Let me just read it one more time because it's really good. This was Soviet dissident who lived under communism. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote The Gulag Archipelago. Human beings are born with different capacities. If they are free, they are not equal. And if they are equal, they are not free. Good luck, New York. They're telling you they're going to take your stuff. They're going to take your family assets. They are going to create a situation where builders will not come in because there's going to be clown courts around rentals. They are going to destroy human ingenuity because that's what big authoritarian governments do. Joseph, take this shoe back. It stinks. Let's expand on that a little bit because it's not just happening in New York City, it's also happening in California. You may have heard about the billionaire tax in California, which is that they've already, I mean, the amount of people that they've already purged out of the state and businesses they've purged out of the state is almost untold. I mean, Elon is the best example of it, who moved most of his operations to Texas, and then evil snake lizard person Gavin Newsom applauded for it while he's losing the tax base for his crazy projects. I want to jump over to the All In podcast, guys. This is David Friedberg talking about how California's billionaire tax is actually way more, even if you don't like the billionaires, it's way more nefarious than just coming after the billionaires.
The reason they're calling it a billionaire tax is to make it easier for people to vote for it and sign up to this entirely new tax system that they're proposing to put on all Americans at some point in the United States. And for the first time ever, degrading our private property rights. Forget about how much wealth you have. Forget about how rich you are. Forget about the term billionaire, millionaire, whatever it is. We're creating or proposing the creation of a new tax system that allows the government, for the first time ever, to come in and audit everything you own, all the jewelry your grandma gave you, all the value of all your couches in your house, the value of your car, the value of all your stocks and bonds, and the government can now in and for the first time look through the veil into your personal property and say, here's how much all this stuff is worth. I'm charging you a percentage of that. That's what I need to get paid.
That is the communist dream. That is what they want in New York City. So he's also making a really important point. They call it a billionaire's tax for now. That's just how you sell it to people, because most of us, including me, and I'm going to pretty much guess you, are not billionaires. So you might, if you're a jealous person, or you're not paying that much attention maybe, or you happen to be more progressive, you might go, well, I'm not a billionaire. So a billionaire's tax, it's pretty easy, right? Like that's what class warfare is. I'm not a billionaire, so yes, I want my fair share of their shit. It's when Bernie always says, they have to pay their fair share. Well, 1% pay 48% of taxes. Is that not enough? Would 76%, 79%? It's the same thing they do with minimum wage, right? Like the one person says it should be a $12 minimum wage, and then the next one's like, no, that's not enough, it's 15. And since it's not based on anything, then we played a video about a year ago where Rashida Tlaib was like, it should be a $25 minimum wage. She now is the best of all of them because she said the most, but somebody could, why not $100 minimum wage? Like it's all nonsense based in jealousy. So, but his point is, you sell it to the people. You sell this endless audit system where everything you own, I mean, you talk about your grandma's jewelry, your couches, everything that you own will be looked at by the government. But you don't sell it to people like that, because no one's going to go, yes, I want the government coming into my house and looking at all my stuff and peeking around and seeing how much everything's worth and what I inherited and all of these other things that have nothing to do with the government that I got free and clear and everything else. But so no one's going to vote for that. But if you vote for something called the billionaire's tax and you go, oh, it'll only affect them and I'm going to get some of their shit, you might vote for it. Here's Friedberg expanding on what's going on here.
What matters is that we're giving the government the right to look into our private property and take a percentage of it every year. The total net worth of billionaires in the United States, $8 trillion.
Yeah, the real money's in the middle class. And
the net worth of the United States, the middle class and everyone else is $170 trillion compared to $8 trillion of the billionaires.
They need a way to open the door so that they can go after the real honeypot. The real honeypot are not 200 people.
Just so everyone understands, the real goal of this is not to tax billionaires, because there are other ways to tax billionaires. Charge them a capital gains tax if they borrow against their assets that they haven't paid capital gains tax on. Very simple. That can resolve this. Another thing you can do, you can raise the capital gains tax rate. Sounds unpopular. I don't agree with that. But that's another way to deal with this, which is take the capital gains tax rate from 20 to 30. You could do that. The real goal of this is to create, for the first time in American history, a private property asset seizure tax, and to use that as a way to take a percentage, because they're going after the 170 trillion, not the 8 trillion that the billionaires have.
Right. So this is the part you really have to understand. And they want control over everything. It's why the craziness of the tax system in Cali is directly connected to the craziness of the clown courts and rent control and court and all of the nonsense that they are going to do in New York. They want control over your life. So they're pointing out something super interesting there. The however many it is, the 100+ billionaires of Cali, they've got about 8 trillion in assets. But what was it? Did he say 170? Was that the number that he said? For the middle class, right? It's way, was it 170 or 130? I forget, but it was 170. So it's 170 trillion. That's the real golden goose here. And once you vote it in thinking it's only going to come for them, well, then one day it will be at your doorstep. Now, thank God we had people before us who were much better than we are. Many of them were the founders of this great country. And what they did, several of them wrote the Federalist Papers, and they created a system that allowed for states' rights so that states would make most of the decisions, and some states would have high taxes, and some states would have low, and some states you could get stoned on the corner, and some states you couldn't, and some states you could have abortion up to the day of birth, and some states you couldn't. And then that would it would put some grease in the system, and that is absolutely wonderful. So what we need right now is I don't even mean this as a Republican sense. We need some cohesion through policy success, right? So this is what Trump is really doing right now, and it's why Bongino is saying, I've had it with the black pillars. Like, we need to just focus on all of the wins that Trump is getting, which is what I've done certainly since, and it's easy to do because they are obvious wins. But if Cali is going to go that route, and go for all the asset seizure and just audit every single thing that you've done. And New York City is going to control every bit of rent and everything else so that people will never build, then you're going to have to move. If you're a thoughtful person, and it sometimes sucks and you have family reasons to stay and everything else. And where might you move? Well, you might move to Florida. Now, I've sort of I'm only here a little over 4 years, and it's not like we need more people here. But you might want it. You watching this, if you're watching this show, you could move here. Sachs, who we just showed you from All In, he put this up. As a response to socialism, Miami will replace New York City as the finance capital, and Austin will replace San Francisco as the tech capital. I mean, I think that's happening already. I mean, it clearly is happening already. There's just simply no doubt about it. But that's why here in Miami, we see it all the time. It is still booming beyond imagination. And it's a little bit of both, right? It's private people coming here with bringing value and bringing companies and everything else, just like I did at a very small scale a couple of years ago. But now we have all of this new money coming in. And then it's a functional government that doesn't spend beyond its means, that's doing incredible stuff with infrastructure. And then you add the layer where we're a safe state too, right? Because people are armed and we have a functional police. And as DeSantis says, if they take over the roadways, these Hamas lunatics, you can drive right through them. Patrick Collison, who is the CEO of Stripe, I think maybe I had him on the show years and years ago. He's a good guy. He wrote this: Miami posting might be a phenomenon whose time has passed, but having just spent a few days visiting, it really does feel like a boom town in a way that no other American city that I've spent time in over the past few years does. In some ways, it reminds me of Chinese cities. So it's kind of a funny thing to say at the end, meaning Chinese cities. Like, we don't want to be Chinese 15-minute cities, but meaning that right now what's happening in this city is that it is booming, it is building, it is creating. Good people are bringing their talents here. And just think about it. If you were a builder, let's say you want to build really awesome new buildings that'll be cutting edge design and everything else, and you have money to do it, you have financial backers to help you do it. Are you looking at New York City going, that's the place I want to do, with all that regulation and all that red tape, and they're going to have these trials now for these people and everything else. I'm going to do it in New York. Or are you going, you know what, look at Florida with low regulation and low taxes, and you can actually get better people to work for you because there's an influx of just wonderful people here too. This is the great divide for America. It's a micro version of the political divide, but where you live will become increasingly important as America sort of goes in different directions. Here's a little video of what's going on in Miami.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Miami, Florida. Enjoy the breathtaking beachscapes, clear blue waters, and vibrant energy. This is the beauty of Miami.
I guess it does look a little like Chinese city. But we've got great Cuban food, and the Venezuelans are very happy. You get the point, guys. Thank you for watching the program today. We've got a post-game show coming up in 30 seconds at rubinreport.locals.com. And everyone else, we will see you tomorrow.